I was sitting on the rooftop alone when he climbed up behind me, like he just couldn't stay away. It wasn't some movie moment or anything. I mean, I was deep into my own little world, half lost in the city's noise, half lost in my thoughts, just trying to catch a break from the usual mess downstairs. Then, suddenly, there he was, sliding up the fire escape like it was the most natural thing in the world, catching me completely off guard. So yeah, there I was, legs dangling over the edge, earbuds in, the skyline stretching out in front of me, like a quiet invitation. It was one of those rare, clear evenings in the city, the kind where the air feels like it's holding its breath. The sun was just dipping below the rooftops, casting that golden light that makes everything look like it's dipped in honey. I'd come up here to escape the chaos of my tiny apartment, the endless notifications, and the weight of things I wasn't ready to talk about. I didn't expect company. Honestly, I didn't expect anyone at all. Then came the soft shuffle behind me. I turned my head, half expecting maybe a stray cat or some dumb pigeon, but nope. There he was. Jake, the guy from the building next door, the one I'd seen around but never really talked to. Tall, with that messy dark hair that looked like it had never met a comb, and eyes that somehow made you feel like maybe he saw right through you but didn't judge. He smiled, one of those easy, hey, mind if I join you kind of smiles. I blinked and shrugged, kicking one foot like it was the most casual rooftop hangout ever. Sure, I said. Turns out, Jake had his own little rooftop hideaway. Said he climbed up sometimes when he needed to think, like me. I guess that's what caught me off guard the most. The fact that someone else, someone I barely knew, was sitting up here in the same quiet spot, probably feeling just as messed up as I did. We didn't say much at first, just sat there, side by side, watching the city lights flicker on as the sky turned from gold to deep blue. But there was something in the way he leaned back, the way his voice softened when he finally broke the silence, that made me want to know more about him, or maybe just more about why he was here, of all places. And that's when I realized this wasn't just some random rooftop encounter. It was the start of something I hadn't seen coming, something that would turn my whole world upside down, starting with the simple fact that I wasn't alone up here anymore. Jake broke the silence with a half smile, like he was trying to sound casual but wasn't quite nailing it. You ever just come up here to get away from everything? Like the noise, the people, your own head? I nodded, pulling my knees up to my chest. Yeah. It's the only place in this building where it doesn't feel like the walls are closing in. The city below was alive with the usual hum. Cars honking, distant shouts, sirens wailing somewhere far off. But up here, it felt like a bubble, a little world that belonged just to us. Or at least to me until now. He laughed softly, more to himself than me, and I caught a flicker of something in his eyes. Vulnerability? Nervousness? I wasn't sure. I get that. Sometimes, I just need to remind myself there's more than this tiny apartment, you know? Like, seeing the skyline makes all the crap feel a bit smaller. I glanced over at him, noticing the way the last bits of sunlight caught the edges of his hair, making it look almost golden. For a second, I forgot why I was up here in the first place. The deadlines, the fights, the loneliness. I just saw him. Jake, someone who, for reasons I didn't understand yet, made the place feel warmer. What do you do when the city's too loud even up here? I asked, curious despite myself. He shrugged, leaning back on his elbows. I guess I talk to whoever's willing to climb up and listen. I smiled at that, a genuine one. Guess I'm lucky then. He shifted closer, just a bit. Not enough to be obvious, but enough that I noticed. Yeah, so am I. There was a pause. One of those heavy, hanging moments when you both know something's happening, but you're not sure what to say next. The air between us felt charged, like the kind of silence right before thunder cracks open across the sky. Hey, Jake said suddenly, breaking the tension with a grin. You want to see something weird? I raised an eyebrow. Weird how? You'll see. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an old, beat-up Polaroid camera. Found this in my parents' attic. Thought it'd be cool to try it out. I laughed. A Polaroid? Seriously? That's retro as hell. Yeah, well, he admitted, I like retro. He clicked a photo of the skyline, and the camera whirred and spit out a little square of glossy paper. We watched as the image slowly took shape. The glowing cityscape, all fuzzy and imperfect, but beautiful in its own way. "That's actually kind of magical," I said, surprised at how much I liked the photo. Jake grinned. "Told you." We ended up talking for a couple of hours after that, sharing stories about the city, our favorite spots, dumb things we did during college. I found out he worked as a graphic designer, which explained the camera and the art books he pulled out of his bag. He asked about my job, my dreams, and I was honest for once. Told him about the writing I'd always wanted to do but never really tried. About the nights I stayed up staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd ever be enough. Jake didn't laugh or brush it off. He just listened. And that felt rarer than I expected. At some point, the city lights fully came on and the stars peeked out. The air cooled, and I wrapped my arms around my knees tighter, not sure if it was the cold or something else making my heart race. I looked at him and noticed the way his eyes lingered on mine, like he was trying to figure out if I was a risk worth taking. Then, without thinking, I found myself leaning in a little. Just a bit, close enough that I could feel his breath, warm and steady. His hand moved to rest lightly on the ledge next to mine, and the world shrank to the space between us. "Crazy night to meet someone new," I muttered, half teasing but mostly serious. Jake laughed quietly. "Crazy, but in a good way." Before I knew it, he was closer still, and then his lips brushed mine. It wasn't some perfect Hollywood kiss. It was tentative, a little unsure but honest, like we were both dipping our toes into something complicated and new. I wanted to pull away. I was scared of how fast this was moving, of what it meant, of the fact that maybe I wasn't ready for someone else to see all the mess inside me. But I didn't. Instead, I closed my eyes, let the city fade around us, and just let that moment be. Because sometimes, the best thing you can do is take a chance on the unexpected. When we finally pulled apart, Jake's smile was softer, almost shy. "So you coming up here again tomorrow?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. "Yeah, I think I will." And just like that, sitting on that rooftop with the city sprawling beneath us, I realized I wasn't alone anymore. Not really. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of something worth holding on to. The next evening, I found myself back on the rooftop just as the sun was dipping low again, the sky painting itself in those same soft oranges and pinks. It was almost like a routine now, this quiet escape above the city's chaos. I wasn't sure what made me look forward to it so much. Maybe it was the calm, maybe it was Jake. Probably both. Sure enough, a few minutes after I settled down, I heard the soft clatter of footsteps on the fire escape. Jake popped his head over the edge, grinning. "Hey, thought you'd be here?" "I'm predictable like that," I said, smiling. "Besides, I was hoping you'd show." He climbed up, dropping down beside me without hesitation. The city was quieter than usual, weeknight magic or something, but up here it felt like we were in our own little bubble again. For a while, we just sat in companionable silence, watching the city flicker to life with all its neon signs and apartment windows glowing like fireflies. Then Jake pulled out the Polaroid again. "I've been thinking, what if we made a project out of this? Take a photo every time we come up here. Capture the city and maybe us too." I laughed, but there was something about the idea that felt right. A rooftop photo diary. "I like it." He handed me the camera and I fumbled with it, trying to focus on the skyline. The picture came out blurry, but Jake just laughed and took it from me, snapping a better shot. "See? You need a pro." I rolled my eyes, but didn't argue. Watching him work, getting excited about the little things, made me realize how much I'd missed that. Someone who saw the world differently, who could find beauty in the ordinary. We ended up talking more that night, deeper stuff this time. About fears and dreams and the kind of loneliness that doesn't always have a name. I told him about my writing, about how I'd been stuck in a rut, afraid to put myself out there. Jake shared his own battles, family stuff, the pressure to be perfect, the weight of expectations. It was weird, feeling so honest with someone I barely knew just days ago. But up here, with the city sprawling beneath us and the sky stretching wide above, it felt safe. Like maybe we could both let a little light in. A few nights later, Jake invited me over to his place. His apartment was small and cluttered with art supplies, sketches taped to the walls, and half-finished paintings stacked in corners. It was chaotic, but in a way that made you want to stay. He put on some music, old jazz records, crackling softly in the background, and offered me a drink. We sat on the couch, close enough that our legs brushed, the air thick with something neither of us wanted to name yet. At one point, I caught him staring at me, his eyes searching. "You know," he said quietly, "I'm glad you didn't run away after that first kiss." I swallowed, heart pounding. "Me too." There was a pause, the kind that felt like everything was hanging by a thread. Then he reached out, tracing a finger along my arm. "I'm not really good at this," he admitted, "at whatever this is, but I want to try." I nodded, feeling the weight of that simple statement. Me too. Over the next few weeks, our rooftop meetings became a ritual. We shared more photos, stories, dreams. We laughed, got quiet, argued a little, made up. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was ours. One night, as the city sparkled below us, Jake leaned in close and whispered, "I think I'm falling for you." My breath hitched. I think I'm already there. We kissed then, slow, steady, like promising to hold on no matter what storms came. Sitting there with him, the city alive beneath us, I realized the rooftop wasn't just a place to escape anymore. It was where my life started to change, where loneliness gave way to something I hadn't dared to hope for, and I was ready to see where this went. After that night, things started to shift in a way I hadn't fully expected. It wasn't just the kisses on the rooftop or the late night talks. It was the little moments, the way Jake's hand found mine on the subway, how we shared our lunches and swapped playlists, the way he laughed at my terrible jokes, even when they were really bad. It felt like the city around us was still buzzing and rushing, but we had carved out this quiet space just for us, and I wanted to hold on to it. But, of course, life isn't as simple as just staying in that bubble. One afternoon, a couple of weeks later, Jake showed up at my apartment unannounced, holding a small box wrapped in brown paper. I was in the middle of trying to write something, anything, when he walked in, that goofy grin on his face. "What's this?" I asked, setting my laptop aside. "Open it," he said, sitting down on my couch like he owned the place already. Which, honestly, he kinda did in my head by then. Inside the box was another Polaroid camera, but this one was old, way older than the one he'd brought the first time. It had scratches, and the leather strap was worn, but there was something charming about it. "I found it at a flea market," Jake explained. "Thought maybe we could start a little project. Take photos of the city from everywhere we go, not just the rooftop. Make it our thing." I looked up at him and felt this swell in my chest, a mix of affection and something more fragile. Hope, maybe? That's actually really sweet. He smiled, but then his expression shifted, got a little more serious. "Hey, can I ask you something?" "Shoot," I said, heart skipping. I know things between us are still kind of new, and I'm not great at this whole relationship thing. But I want to be honest, I'm scared sometimes. Scared of getting close and then messing it all up. I was quiet for a moment, processing that, because here was Jake, this guy who had become my anchor in a city I always thought was too loud to find peace in, admitting his fears right to my face. "Me too," I admitted, "but I don't want to let that stop me. Not with you." His shoulders relaxed, and for a moment the weight lifted between us. Then he reached over, squeezing my hand. "Good, because I don't want to let you go." That night, we spent hours wandering the city streets, camera in hand, snapping shots of neon signs, old brick walls, the way the rain made the pavement gleam. We talked about everything and nothing. Past relationships, family drama, the weird quirks we'd never told anyone else. Somewhere between the laughter and the shared warmth, I realized just how much this had become a part of me. Jake wasn't just a distraction or a random guy who climbed up to my rooftop. He was the person I wanted to come home to, the one I wanted to share my messy, confusing, beautiful life with. But of course, reality has a way of sneaking in when you least expect it. A few days later, Jake got a call that changed everything. His mom was sick. Really sick. Suddenly, the future we'd been imagining felt shaky, uncertain. He had to leave town for a bit to be with his family. That night, sitting on our rooftop one last time before he left, the city sprawled beneath us, felt bigger and lonelier than ever. "I don't know how long I'll be gone," he said, voice quiet. "But I want you to know this, us. It means everything to me." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "It means everything to me too." We sat close, holding on to each other like we were trying to hold back the tide. And when he kissed me goodbye, it wasn't just a kiss. It was a promise that no matter where he was, no matter how far away, we'd find our way back. As the days stretched into weeks, I threw myself into writing, trying to fill the silence with words. We texted, called when we could, and shared photos from wherever Jake was. But the rooftop felt emptier without him, and I realized just how much he'd changed my world. One evening, just as I was about to give up and call it a night, I got a message from him. "Can't wait to be back on our rooftop." I smiled, heart pounding. Because no matter the distance or the challenges, some things, like the city lights and the way we fit together, weren't going anywhere. And honestly, neither was I. The days without Jake stretched out longer than I thought they would. The rooftop felt like a hollow stage. The cities hummed louder without him there to share it. I found myself going up there more often, clutching my phone like it was a lifeline, waiting for a message, a call, anything. Sometimes I'd stare at the skyline, trying to pretend that the lights below were little beacons just for us, like a secret code we shared from miles apart. But the truth was, I missed him. Not the kind of passing miss, but the deep kind that twists your chest and makes your brain replay every laugh, every touch, every word. It was strange because we hadn't been together long, barely a few months, but it felt like he'd become a part of my daily rhythm, a piece I didn't know was missing till he was gone. One rainy evening, I sat on my couch, phone in hand, scrolling through the photos we'd taken on our rooftop adventures and city wanderings. The Polaroids, the blurry neon signs, the rainy sidewalks, his face caught mid-laugh in some candid shot, reminded me of all the little things that made us us. It was bittersweet. I missed his presence, but I was grateful for the memories etched in those imperfect pictures. A text buzzed. It was Jake. "Hey, I'm heading back next week. Can't wait to see you." Simple, direct, enough to light up my night. The week crawled by, each day dragging as I tried to keep busy. Work became a blur. Friends noticed I was quieter, more distracted. I didn't blame them. It was hard to focus when your mind was halfway across the country, with someone you cared about more than you ever expected. Finally, the day arrived. I was waiting at the subway entrance near my building when I saw him coming down the stairs, a backpack slung over one shoulder, tired eyes but that same crooked smile. I felt my heart jump in a way that made me self-conscious, but I didn't care. I just wanted to get to him. "Jake," I called out, voice cracking just a bit. He looked up and everything else faded away. He broke into a run, and before I knew it, I was wrapped in his arms. It was warm and real and exactly what I needed. I could feel the weight of the weeks apart melting into the spaces between our fingers intertwined. "We made it back," he whispered. "Yeah, we did." That night, we climbed the fire escape together, like the first time he surprised me on the rooftop. The city was quieter than usual, the kind of calm that feels like a fresh start. We sat side by side, legs dangling over the edge, looking out over the skyline we'd come to call ours. "I missed this," he said, breaking the silence. Missed you too," I admitted. There was something different now, a shift in the air between us. We weren't just two people trying to find solace in a city. We were a team, facing whatever came next together. Over the following weeks, we settled back into our rhythm. Our rooftop ritual stayed sacred. The photos, the talks, the quiet moments. But life wasn't always easy. Jake struggled with the pressure from his family, and I wrestled with the fear that I might lose him again. We argued sometimes, miscommunications fueled by exhaustion and uncertainty. But every time, we found our way back, because underneath it all, There was something real. One night, after a long day, we sat on the rooftop, the city lights twinkling below. Jake pulled out the old Polaroid and snapped a picture of us, the flash illuminating his grin and my tired smile. "I think we're all right," he said softly. I smiled and nodded. "Yeah, we are." Leaning into him, I realized that this rooftop, this city, and this unexpected love story we'd built, they were my home now. And no matter what came next, I wasn't walking that path alone. After that moment on the rooftop, the one where Jake snapped that Polaroid and said, "I think we're all right," things didn't magically get easy. If anything, real life made sure to remind us that love isn't just about sunsets and rooftop talks. It's messy, complicated, and sometimes downright scary. But despite all that, I found myself wanting to fight for this, wanting to fight for US. A couple of weeks later, Jake and I were sitting in a cramped coffee shop near my apartment. It was one of those places that looked like it hadn't changed since the 70s, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in faded band posters. The air smelled like burnt espresso and old books. We were sharing a booth, elbows bumping, both a little tired from the day, but not quite ready to call it night. Jake stirred his latte absent-mindedly and looked at me like he wanted to say something important, but wasn't sure how. After a beat, he finally spoke up. "I've been thinking a lot about my family lately," he said quietly, "and I don't know if I'm ready to deal with all the pressure they're putting on me, especially about who I'm seeing." My stomach tightened, but I tried to keep my voice steady. "You mean about us?" He nodded. "Yeah, they don't exactly get it, or maybe they just don't want to. Sometimes I feel like I'm stuck between who they want me to be and who I really am." I reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "Jake, I get that. I've felt that too, but you don't have to be anyone but yourself with me. Not ever." He looked at me, eyes searching. "Are you sure?" "Because I don't want to drag you into something messy." I laughed softly. "You're not dragging me anywhere. If anything, you're the reason I'm starting to believe there's something better out there." Jake smiled, a little relieved, and leaned in to kiss my cheek. It was that simple gesture, the kind that says, "I'm here," that made me realize how much we both were holding on to each other for strength. Over the next few days, I noticed Jake pulling away a little, not in a dramatic way, more like he was retreating inside himself, maybe trying to protect me, or just figuring out how to navigate everything. I wanted to give him space, but also didn't want to lose the closeness we'd built. One evening, I found him on our rooftop again, sitting alone with his knees pulled up, staring out at the city. I climbed up behind him quietly. "Hey," I said softly. He didn't turn around, but his voice was steady. "Hey." We sat like that for a while, just two silhouettes against the glowing skyline. Finally, I asked, "Want to talk about it?" Jake sighed and finally faced me. "I'm scared, man. Scared that all this," he gestured between us and the city beyond, "won't last. That when things get tough, I'll lose myself or lose you." I pulled him closer, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. "Hey, listen, we don't have to have all the answers right now. We just have to keep trying." Together, he rested his head against mine. Together. That night, we stayed on the rooftop until the stars faded, making promises in the quiet, knowing that love is as much about the trying as it is about the moments of happiness. A few weeks later, Jake surprised me again. He showed up at my door holding a folded piece of paper. "What's that?" I asked. "Something I wrote," he said, cheeks slightly flushed. "I've never been great with words, but I wanted you to know how much you mean to me." I unfolded it carefully. His handwriting was messy, but heartfelt. The words were simple, about how meeting me had changed him, about the fear and hope tangled up inside, about wanting to build something real. I looked up, eyes wet. "Jake, this means everything," he smiled shyly. "Good, because I'm in this for the long haul, rooftop adventures and all." And just like that, in a tiny apartment, surrounded by city noise, I realized that love isn't a perfect story. It's a series of imperfect, beautiful moments. Moments I wanted to keep having with Jake. One rooftop, one Polaroid, one day at a time. After Jake gave me that letter, things felt a little different between us. Not in a big, dramatic way, but in the quiet assurance that maybe we were building something more solid. I kept the note folded up in my wallet, pulling it out sometimes just to remind myself that someone saw me, that messy, distracted, unsure version of me, and liked me anyway. A couple of weeks passed, and the city started shifting into fall. The air got crisper, and the leaves turned those warm shades of amber and rust. One evening, I found myself back on the rooftop, wrapped in a hoodie, the sky a deep indigo sprinkled with stars. I was scrolling through old photos on my phone when I heard the familiar clatter of footsteps on the fire escape. Jake appeared, breath visible in the cool air, carrying a small bag. His cheeks were flushed from the climb or the cold. I wasn't sure which. He smiled, dropping down beside me without a word. "What's in the bag?" I asked. He pulled out 2 steaming mugs. "Hot chocolate. Thought we could use it." The gesture was simple, but it warmed me more than the drink ever could. We sipped in comfortable silence, watching the city twinkle below. After a while, Jake nudged me gently. "Want to see something?" He pulled a folded piece of cardboard from the bag and unfolded it to reveal a tiny makeshift photo album. It was handmade, rough around the edges, but carefully put together. Inside were the Polaroids we'd taken over the past months, the blurry city lights, the rainy sidewalks, the 2 of us caught in candid moments, laughing or just sitting quietly. "I made it for us," he said softly. "So when things get tough, we have this. Proof that we're in it together." My throat tightened, and I took the album, flipping through the pages slowly. Each photo told a story, a memory we'd shared. I looked up at him, feeling overwhelmed in the best way. "That's really amazing, Jake." He shrugged, smiling shyly. "I'm not great with grand gestures, but this felt right." We sat there, mugs empty, wrapped in a quiet that felt like home. A few days later, things got complicated. Jake's family drama flared up again. Messages left unanswered, moments when he seemed distant and distracted. I wanted to give him space, but also worried he was shutting me out. One night, I found him pacing in his apartment, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and tense. When he hung up, he looked at me, eyes dark and tired. "They want me to come back home," he said. "For good." I blinked, heart sinking. "And what do you want?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I don't know. Everything feels like a choice between who I'm supposed to be and who I want to be." I stepped closer, reaching for his hand. "You don't have to decide right now. And you don't have to do it alone." He nodded slowly, eyes searching mine. "Thank you for being here." That night, we talked for hours, sharing fears and dreams, trying to piece together a path forward. It wasn't easy, and there were no guarantees. But there was us, real and imperfect, and committed to figuring it out. The next weekend, we decided to escape the city for a bit. Just a day trip out to the nearby woods, a break from the noise and pressure. We packed a small bag, took the Polaroid cameras, and drove out to a quiet spot where the trees stretched tall and the air tasted like pine and freedom. We wandered through the woods, laughing as Jake tried to teach me how to use an old manual camera he'd brought along, snapping photos of leaves, branches, and each other. The sun filtered through the canopy, making everything glow golden. At one point, we stopped by a small clearing with a view of a lake shimmering in the distance. Jake pulled me close, and for a moment, the world felt still. "I want this," he said quietly. "Not just the good parts, but all of it." I smiled, heart full. "Me too." We kissed there, surrounded by trees and silence, away from the city and its demands. It was raw and real, a promise made without words. On the drive back, the car filled with music and conversation, I realized that no matter what challenges came our way, we had something worth fighting for. Something that started on a rooftop, but had grown into so much more. And, honestly, I couldn't wait to see where we'd go next. Back in the city, after our escape to the woods, I felt something shift. A quiet confidence threading through the uncertainty that had hung over us for so long. The noises and pressures hadn't disappeared, but somehow, with Jake by my side, they felt manageable, like we were facing the storm together, and that made all the difference. One evening, we climbed the fire escape again, the city lights flickering below us like the pulse of everything we'd been through. The air was cool, the sky clear, and the familiar rooftop felt like the safest place in the world. Jake pulled out the little photo album he'd made, flipping through the pages slowly. "Look at this," he said softly. "All our moments, captured imperfectly but honestly." I nodded, tracing my finger over one of the photos. A blurry shot of us laughing in the rain. "It's us," I said, messy. Sometimes scared, but still here. He smiled, the way he always did when he wanted me to know he meant it. "I want to keep building this, whatever this becomes. No more running, no more hiding." I leaned into him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against mine. "Me too. No matter what comes next, we do it together." We sat there, wrapped in the city's glow, and I realized that love isn't about having everything figured out. It's about choosing each other every day, even when it's hard, even when the future's uncertain. That night, as we stayed up talking until the first light of dawn, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. Not because life was suddenly perfect, but because I wasn't alone anymore. Jake had climbed up to my rooftop, sure, but more than that, he'd climbed into my life, and I'd gladly let him stay. And that was enough.